my own hometown. Stranger.
Howdy folks, Little John here once again for 5 on Friday. Brought to us this week by Wild Turkey Long Branch Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey, aged in oak and Texas mesquite. So that's something different. It's something new. Only just turned up on the Australian shelves, I believe. I don't think we've had it around before, so always had it on special, so we'll give her a whirl. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is storing your beer, and that storing and aging your beer, mostly in regards to in bottles, not so much in kegs, but in bottles. And again, this is, most brewers are bottling their beer and looking after it, and that's the way it goes. So what happens with that beer after you've bottled it can have a big impact on how it drinks, how it keeps, which ultimately reflects on how much you enjoy drinking that beer. So I mean, most people are pretty much aware of the old, keep your beer in a dark place, don't let it get too hot, sort of stuff like that. There's, you see rules floating around that you should store your beer, at the same temperature you fermented it. That one I don't understand. I don't understand that at all. I don't really get what the reasoning behind that is. I think what the point is, that fermentation temperature is generally a good temperature range for keeping your beer for it to carbonate. So if you want carbonation, you generally want your beer around those temperatures. But if you're talking a lager, you can't carbonate a lager at lager temps. So that doesn't work. So general basics of conditioning and storing your beer. Ooh, that's nice. You want to keep your bottles in an area that doesn't get direct sunlight. It doesn't need necessarily for it to be dark. You don't need to stick it into a cupboard and block it out. But I do keep my beer in a cupboard for the most part. But the biggest thing is the sunlight. You don't want sunlight getting onto beer bottles. Sunlight directly onto your beer will play around with the acids from your hops, and can create what's called skunking. There are some people that will say that it is the definitive character of several well-known beers that come in glass bottles from certain part of the world. But there are studies that have been conducted on beer in bottles to see what the effect that those UV rays from sunlight has. And I've read some of them studies, and this is just off the top of my head. It's been quite a while since I've read them. But beer in a glass bottle, or even just in a glass, the acids in the hops start to skunk in around about 2 minutes, by memory. It's quite quickly, and essentially in the time you're sitting there drinking your beer, so you poured a beer on a nice hot day and you sat it down on the table and you're sitting out the back, sun streaming down on your beer, that beer is skunked before you get to finish it. So the flavours are being affected, and this is, this can be hard to avoid, obviously. You don't want your beer in the sun. But when it comes to storage, we can avoid having that direct sunlight. Now, that same study found that green bottles, while they provide more protection, still skunked in a relatively short period of time. Brown, amber bottles, and darker bottles took a lot longer, which is obvious. Which is why most beer comes in brown bottles. That's not just because it protects the beer. Admittedly, brown bottles were historical, was easier to do, but over time, and so to a degree, you sort of want to steer away from bottling clear glass. But when it comes to storing your own beer, the bottle you got in doesn't matter if you can keep those bottles out of the direct sunlight. So if you can put them into a cupboard and they're in the dark, then you're going to have no problem. If you can put them back into a carton and that's sealed up, and again the sun's not getting at it, then you're not going to have a problem. I've used plenty of clear bottles for bottling, and I still do. I've still got there's an amount of clear bottles that work their way through my bottle collection. There's a lot of green bottles. I prefer brown bottles, but you can't always just have brown bottles. So get them into a place that isn't exposed to bright light, and then you want to keep them as much as you can at a relatively stable temperature, and that best temperature for storage is high teens into the low 20s. Again, yes, it comes down to that. It does fit into that sort of ale fermentation range. If you ferment an ale at the temperature, then storing bottles at that temperature is probably quite alright. Again, not pushing into those higher ranges if you can avoid it. Ideally, 18 to 20 degrees would be really good. Cellar temp is about 14 degrees. You hear probably they talk about cellar temp and cellar storage. Cellar temp is considered to be 14 degrees Celsius. That will range obviously from location to location, but that's the range they're referring to. Your beer won't carbonate at 14 degrees particularly quickly. It will take quite a while. It will happen, but it will take a while. So if you're going to store at those temperatures, then you need to allow for 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks for your beer to carbonate properly. You can store at 18 to 20. Your beer's going to carbonate in 2 weeks, pretty much no problem all the time. You might get the occasional batch that takes a little bit longer, depending on how you've treated the yeast and how you've, if you haven't fined, what level of cold crushing you've done. So for the most part, ambient temperature in a stable environment is going to do the job for you. You start letting your temperatures get too high, you start sneaking into the mid-20s, and you start giving yeast an environment in which it can get a little bit active again. And even though it may have gone through and chewed up all the available sugars, you get that yeast nice and warm and it goes into a whole new environment where it goes, hang on, I might just work a little bit harder than I did before. And you'll find that beer may ferment another 2 or 3%. Now, that can have all sorts of effects, anywhere from carbonating a beer and overgassing it so much that you start having bottle bombs, or just simply that continual ferment and you'll correct nasty flavours and extra alcohol within the bottle, just overgassed, which isn't a pleasant flavour on its own. I've had one or two particularly dark beers, stouts and things where you want to have an extended storage where they've gone over a summer, and my storage cabinet is just here in the garage, and so in summer the garage will sit normally in around the 23 degree mark, but if we get a run of high 30s, then the garage can sneak up to 28, and sort of hang around that mark if we're not getting cool temps overnight. And so I've had a couple of beers over the years that have snuck into that range, and it hasn't, it's killed them, essentially. It has killed them. And some of them have been fantastic beers, and it's really disappointing when you go and grab a beer that you haven't, you've had put away, and it's just ruined, and it's cidery, and it's, it's got medicinal notes, and it's overgassed, just wrecked. So you find a place in the house, in your garage, where the temperature is reasonably stable. I now try to put anything that's going to store for long term, particularly at those sort of temperatures, inside the house, where the temperature's a lot more controlled, so it will last longer. If you're not going to, I mean, my beer takes longer for me to drink. Most batches will last 6 months from bottling to where I finish them. So I have a lot of span I've got to cover. If you're knocking a beer out and 2 weeks after it's bottled, you're into it and you're drinking, it's only lasting you a week or two, 3, 4 weeks, it doesn't matter. It's really irrelevant because that beer's not spending enough time at those higher temperatures. But if you are going a bit longer, then you need to sort of really have a good look at how you are storing it. Ideally, I get my beers carbonated, give them 3 or 4 weeks carbonation, then I get them into the fridge. I have a keg fridge, I have a dedicated bottle fridge. And the bottles go into the fridge, so they've got a nice cool storage. Once they're carbonated, they don't need to stay at room temperature. And that's almost like an extended lagering, or that cooling clears the beer out really well and ages it nicely, and it ends up much smoother and nicer. But not everyone has that option. But your main focus: stable temperature, out of direct sunlight, dark glass if you can. You do those 3 things, keep that under control with a good ferment. Your beer's going to stay in good condition for a decent amount of time, and you're going to get the best out of it, and you're not going to find the beer deteriorating too much over a reasonable period of time. Alright, so that's it. That's storage. It's dragged down a little bit longer than normal on a Friday, but it's an important factor of the beer. So if you haven't subscribed, hit the button down there so you get notified when there's a new video up. Got any questions, any comments? As always, stick them down the bottom. Jump on the website, jump on the Facebook page, say hello, whatever. Might see you on Facebook. If you do, say hello. So that's me for today, Little John. So until I see you again, we're talking beer, we're drinking beer, we're brewing beer. Good brewing.